he said, you interrupt and say, I know. He's like, why do you do that? And I was like, I don't know, just because I do and I know, and I'm just like agreeing with them. And he goes, you don't have to let people know that you know. You know that, right? And it's kind of funny. He was like, did it ever cross your mind that just because you know something, you don't have to prove that you know or have to show people that you know? Hey folks, welcome to this week's edition of Wednesday Word. I have decided that for the next 3 Wednesday Words that I do, starting with today's, I'm going to talk about listening, because I think there's 3 principles from Proverbs 18 that you can really benefit from if you really can wrap your mind around it, if the Lord uses it in your life. I know He has done it in my life, and it came as a result of a conversation with a friend that I'll tell you about now. But also through biblical counseling training, which is fresh in my mind because I just got back from the ACBC annual conference. Proverbs 18:13 says, he who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. And that is, hopefully I said it right, from the New King James Version, because I memorized that over 20 years ago. I've never had like a life verse, personally, it's just not how I roll. But that was a life verse that year, let me tell you. And the reason was, I had this habit, which I'm sure you could picture just knowing my personality. I hope it's not the same now. I don't think it is. But I had this habit of finishing people's sentences and giving my answer or my thoughts or my opinions just immediately when I thought I knew where this was going. I think I meant well. It's like, I've heard this, or I've dealt with this, or I've thought of this, or I read about this, and I would give an answer, and people weren't always offended. It didn't always really bother them, but a friend of mine called it to my attention, and he told me, he's like, do you realize you give answers to people when they're not asking anything? And I had never thought of it that way, but he was like, you interrupt people with your opinion, and you give them your opinion on something when they haven't even asked a question. It's almost like you just have to. And I actually interrupted him, and I said, oh, I know. Yeah, I know what you mean by that. And he goes, that's it. He said, Proverbs 18:13 says, he who answers a matter before he hears it, it is his folly and his shame. And he said, you interrupt and say, I know. He's like, why do you do that? And I was like, I don't know, just because I do and I know, and I'm just like agreeing with them. And he goes, you don't have to let people know that you know. You know that, right? And it's kind of funny. He was like, did it ever cross your mind that just because you know something, you don't have to prove that you know or have to show people that you know? And he challenged me with Proverbs 18:13, so then I committed to memorizing that scripture. And it's not a long scripture. And I still have it memorized in the New King James because that's the Bible that I was using at the time, even though I haven't used that one in years, at least not regularly. Proverbs 18:13, he who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. And so what about you? What are topics, issues, things in life that you have thought through, walked through, wrestled with, maybe even sins that you've repented of and that the Lord has grown you out of? It's great, but be careful, because when those topics are raised, they can be the ones where you get so either excited or even with a good desire to help, but instead of listening well, you give an answer before you've heard the whole story. And it's really not validating or confirming or encouraging to people, because it's almost like, I don't need to hear everything else that's going on in your life right now. I already have an opinion. I already know this. As if they're cookie cutters. And there's no cookie cutter person. There's no cookie cutter counselee. And so consider Proverbs 18:13. It's a short verse that you can read through and hopefully memorize. He who hears a matter, I'm saying it wrong. He who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. And ask the Lord to grow you to be a better listener of people, a more patient, humble listener, and to never think in your mind, oh, I know where this is going, or I know what this is about, but that you would listen before you would answer. And I look forward to talking more about listening over the next 3 Wednesday Words that I do, so I'll talk to you then. Take care. God bless.